Candid Cinematography at episode number 2. Now, the thing is, before I begin, I want to mention few things. Uh, as you have already figured out, since there is almost no one doing something like this from India, or at least talking about, cinematography, talking about camera, talking about the aesthetics of cinema, the visual arts of cinema, almost no one is talking about cinema. So there is a lot of jealousy, there is a lot of envy. So you will see many people will do a lot of gossip behind me. Maybe I am not sure about that. I don't give a damn about that. But you might find some people will try to do a lot of gossip. Many people will try to do this and that. So we don't talk about those things here. When we talk about cinematography here, we actually respect cinematography a lot. Because I remember when I bought my first camera, I mean, obviously, I had a digital camera a long time back, in initial days when I used to have 3.2 megapixel digital camera. I have been having a digital camera since then, so I know the nitty gritty of this ISO at the aperture shutter speed and this exposure triangle. But gradually I have seen the evolution of cameras too, this cyber shot, then Nikon, different cameras, a bit of Leica I have used. I have seen Hasselblad, I have seen Red camera, I have seen Arri, I have seen many different film cameras and DSLR cameras. And since I have used that with my own hands, I know how it feels like. But nowadays, you will see, first you go to the different genre of photography, then gradually you uh, change your preferences of camera. Uh, People come up with a lot of excuses, but they miss out the main thing, that you have to do the storytelling, you have to take a picture. I mean, different kinds of people can take different kinds of pictures. If you don't like this kind of, if you don't like this kind of pictures, or this kind of filmmaking, this kind of storytelling, then it's your choice, right? You don't have any authority to tell others that this is a wrong thing, that is a wrong thing. I mean, if the cinematography is really bad, if the craft is really bad, if the cinema is really bad, then you can mention with maybe a constructive criticism, so that it can help everyone, in the process. Or maybe during the criticism, people can learn so much. It can be a scope for argument, it can be a scope for discussion, but we don't entertain like bullshit arguments here. Because I remember when I was taking my pictures, I was looking at cinematography, I studied so many things on my own, just because of the love for cinematography, just because of the love for camera. And these things, these are minor things. This, the reason is, when something very shallow is multiplied with the brand of India, heritage of India, then many people can talk about, but many people try to. So we are not talking about those things here. Rather, what we are talking about is cinematography. And whenever I mention all these things, you will see that something is happening, and that is my fault too. But for 2 or 3 episodes, I want to keep it like this, because I want to see this happening, because this is the incompetence of some Indian people, or the incompetence of the culture they have created. I mean, to me this is very important, that if you love camera, if you love cinematography, if you love storytelling, if you love script writing, obviously when you're writing a script, you will look at the visual aspects, how the film will look like in the theaters, in the screen. But here it is like, you're using camera, but you don't have to like cinematography. You're liking cinematography, you don't have to you don't have to like the camera. You don't have to respect this, you don't have to like this, you don't have to love this. So there is again an inherent sense of disconnect. So many things are happening. Cameras are getting produced, they are getting imported, they are getting this and that. But ultimately, we are not getting the cinematography. And people who should vouch for it, having been in the medium for so long, they are not doing so. They don't understand it enough in the first place. But they know how to look good using the camera. But the camera, when we are talking about candid cinematography, Adda, we are talking about storytelling using the cinematic language. Last day I mentioned few things, and I can mention a lot of other things. 5 C's. I can talk about the camera angles, I can talk about continuity, I can talk about the cutting, the editing process, how you put your shots together, the close-ups, the composition, and so many other things. But the thing is, last day I mentioned only few names. I wanted to mention a lot of names, but I wanted to keep it short, within 30 minutes or so. Darius Konji, I wanted to mention. Darius Konji is a wonderful cinematographer. Janusz Kaminski, I wanted to mention. But today, I am mentioning those people because first we will pay a tribute to those people, or at least mention their names, the films they have worked on, the directors they have worked with. Then we will go to the cinematography, because it is not because of the age. Again, one thing people propagate a lot of bullshit. It is not because of the age. One cinematographer can be very young, but through his or her work, he or she can be respected a lot because he or she has understood it. So that's why it is not because of the age, it is the craft or the art or the storytelling aspects or the aesthetics or the visual arts one is bringing to the table or bringing to the storytelling. That is when we go for contribution, that is when we go for the pushing limits thing. Otherwise, if you don't have that attitude, there can be two things I mentioned. After this I will just start doing it. I mentioned two types of love. One can be love for position. When you have love for position, somebody is in a particular position, you have love for that. You have to do your compromises and you are going for that. One can be love of abundance, unconditional love. I mentioned last day, a camera can give you unconditional love that you cannot get something sometimes from mere mortals. So, this thing, this love for position, we are not talking about that here. So you can have respect for the position, love for the position if the person has earned it, but it's your choice. We are talking about love of abundance or that unconditional love you get while dealing with the camera. Sometimes, a director can be a cinematographer, a cinematographer can be a director. There is a scope for transition. So there is no restriction. That is what I want to emphasize on. That is what I want to emphasize on and mention again and again. There is no restriction. Maybe you have done this for a long time, but now it is your chance to do something else. Maybe you have been a cinematographer for a long time. Now you can be a director. Maybe you have written a lot of scripts for this time, all this time. Then you can be a cinematographer. Then you can be a director. So it is flexible, but it happens when you love storytelling, when you love aesthetics, when you love the artistic aspects, the storytelling aspects, when you love cinema as a whole. Then you can be that flexible, you can make those switches, you can make those transitions. Otherwise, if you think, oh, I am so afraid, I have studied only cinematography, I have the camera only, I will not do anything else, and everyone you are talking to, they have seen you with the camera and they are telling you you have to do cinematography only because you have a camera. Maybe you have it because of a hobby. There are many directors who have great visual eye, visual memory, visual aesthetics, but they don't shout it in the public. When they are having a collaboration with the cinematographer, they are mentioning, they are communicating their vision, you know, but they don't have to shout, they don't have to explicitly mention all these things. This is because of, this is because of this bullshit, and many people will talk about a lot of things. But going beyond that, we talk about cinematography. Why I mention all these things? Because when I will be talking about Canon Cinematography Adda going forward, I won't be mentioning all these things. So this is something you have to learn in the first place when you are comparing, or when we are looking at some names. This is something you should keep in mind as well, apart from the film or apart from the work itself. Sometimes you are figuring out this person is talking, but there is a disconnect, there is a dissonance, it is not seen in the work, or this is there, this is not there. So these things are there. Sometimes they love to listen to that, they are talking about all these things, but saying that, there are many people who understand it. Should create more opportunities for people where we have newcomers, we have new cinematographers, new filmmakers, new script writers who can come and make their movies. When you start with an indie movie, it gives you a lot of opportunity that you tell your story in your way. So maybe you are the director, you are the cinematographer, or you are doing a intimate or close collaboration with the cinematographer, and you can play with it. You have that flexible timeline, you have that flexible opportunity to play with the shots, to play with the perspectives, to play with the lenses. You have the constraints too. Saying that, you have the budget scheduling constraints, maybe mostly budget constraints, but you are still not compromising on the artistic integrity or the aesthetics. So you are focusing on the visual aesthetics, you are focusing on the visual appeal of the story, the color palette of the story, you are focusing on that. So when you make a movie out of love, or maybe an independent movie, I won't mention love again and again because inherently we have love. Why I mention? Because I have seen people devoid of love. That's why I mentioned it, so that you can understand love is just a word for many, but when it is translated to the cinematic language harmoniously with the other aspects like music, score, production design, art direction, we have a story, we have a emotional masterpiece, we have, um, maybe a tapestry, maybe an architecture, maybe a seed you have put, and there is a great plant coming out of that seed. But we all are involved in that process. We are talking about that kind of cinematography here, right? So, uh, quickly, I will mention few names, and then you can see. I hope you can see the screen. Acha, Gunnar Fisher, I didn't mention last day. I will mention it. Gunnar Fisher is one of the great cinematographers who has worked with Ingmar Bergman. So if you haven't studied Gunnar Fisher, you should study Gunnar Fisher. We talk about Nyquist, Sven Nyquist. I'm giving you a very brief introduction, not even introduction, because I can see um, introduction means, yeah, I mean, a bit of introduction only, but in a different way. Mostly I want to talk about few things. Gradually we will talk about digital intermediate, we will talk about when to go for digital intermediate, when not to go for digital intermediate, when to go for CGI, when not to go for CGI. We can talk about all these things, but before that, the color palette, the texture, the kind of lighting, the source of lighting, the distance of lighting, and the most importantly, again, the aesthetics and the emotional aspects. A character, emotional character, the best thing is, before talking about all these things, we should look at pictures. So next session onwards, we will look at the pictures. So maybe looking at the picture, I can tell you the depth of field, the aperture, what kind of lens is used, is it an anamorphic or what is it. So we can talk about all these things, and it takes a lot of expertise, but we can talk about all these things. So that will be something. Gunnar Fischer, again, very competition with Ingmar Bergman, great cinematographer. Many people are into cinematography because of Gunnar Fischer, Greg Tolan. These people you should know. You know, uh, these are the films. Summer with Monica, wonderful movie. Seven Seal, wonderful movie. So you should look at the grayscale, the shades. I hope you have seen Wild Strawberries too. So wonderful movie. You know, Darius Conji. Last day I forgot to mention few people. I just start with them and then go for. and I am just taking the sequence in a very arbitrary manner. So I don't have any inherent meaning in that. So just I figured out few names I missed in the last episode. So that's why I'm mentioning their names, and very close to me. So I like their work a lot. Though I wanted to work with Emmanuel Lubezki, maybe we will talk. But you know, one of my favorite cinematographers. Yeah, so that is Iranian French, but we don't talk about the nationality. We talk about the work. He has worked with a very important collaboration with David Fincher. No, I don't hit the safe search. So I am having some problem with my computer, and I am really sorry for the delay or for the time it is taking. If it takes more time, I will just close it, and then in the next session, I will start doing it, because we talk about very serious stuff, so we don't have to wait for anything. And semantics. One thing I can mention regarding that, what I started with, many people are too busy with finding the inner meanings. What is this? What is that? But if you look at cinema, if you really understand the inner meaning of a shot, inner meaning of the visual language, then you can do a lot with the camera. So it is again depending on the person you are. It is not because of a camera, rather it is because of the human being you are. And it takes a lot to become that human being. You can steal other stuff, you can do this and that. With that you cannot do much. So you can do all those bullshit, but we are talking about stuff, that really matters. Janusz Kaminski, I will come to Janusz Kaminski. Yeah, finally we got the picture. The thing is very disrespect towards camera, because again and again I mentioned, in India there is a culture propagated that you can use the camera only to shoot wedding photography. So it is a byproduct of that. uh, you know uh, so everything has to fit in a particular archetype or role. So you miss out the humanistic storytelling. But it gets a lot of recognition, they will try to run after that person. I mean, typical media people